Hello and welcome to Bottom Line. Tonight, viewers, we shall discuss the centre's decision to reduce the ambit of AFSPA in as many as 3 northeast states. What does it mean at ground zero? Well, the centre's decision to reduce the ambit of AFSPA in the 3 northeast states of Assam, Nagaland and Manipur has been welcomed from most quarters. This is being seen by many as a step towards the right direction, a step that can eventually usher in permanent peace. But what does the decision mean on ground zero? Some are accusing that the move is symbolic in nature when it comes to the states of Manipur and Nagaland. In Manipur, AFSPA has been removed in areas under 9 police stations, of which 3 are in Imphal West, 2 in Imphal East and 1 each in Jiribam, Kakching, Bishnupur and Thaubal. In Nagaland, AFSPA has been completely removed from Tiwensang, Shamator and Simeonu districts, while its ambit has been reduced in Kohima, Wokha, Mokokchung and Longlang. So what does this mean on ground zero? Are people, activists, CSOs, NGOs happy at the ground level with this decision? To discuss what the move means, I'll be joined from Imphal in a short while from now by Khuraija Mathova, Vice President of International Peace and Social Advancement or IPSA. From Kohima, I'm being joined by Elwindang, General Secretary of the Naga Hoho. From Shillong, I have with me Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, Professor Nehu. A very warm welcome to all of you, gentlemen. If I can go to Mr. Elwindang first. Mr. Endang, your first reactions on the reduction on ambit of AFSPA. Can we still say it's a move towards the right direction? Yes, there may not be many districts which have been taken off from the ambit of AFSPA, but still, can you call it a move, or term it a move in the right direction nevertheless?
The central government have taken cognizance of this AFSPA. We have been protecting, we have been demanding, placing our demands to the central government for the past many years. Finally, a step positive towards the people's sentiments has been shown with this recent development. However, we are upset at the nature of the central government dealing with the sentiments of the people. We have had enough of atrocities by the armies, violations of human rights in the region. We are not being considered as equal human beings. If we are to talk about law and order situation, I think all the states in the Northeast have their own state governments to take care of law and order situations. There is not a need for the armed personnel or the armed forces to be in case. In spite of the fact that the Naga people having a peace process, peace dialogue for almost 25 years now. It has been time and again reported that the atmosphere is conducive, and therefore the need of the act is no longer required. But unfortunately, this act itself does not grant security to the people, to the public, but rather it terrorizes the people. This draconian law has to go away from the region. This act itself proves that the Indian armies are a terror to the people. They call themselves as the friends of the hill people, but in the real sense, in the ground, they are rather terrorizing the people. We can no longer accept this act. Government of India sooner or later must repeal this act from all the areas. You see, the recent, even after declaring announcement of the act being reduced in some of the districts in the state, we can see incidents taking place in neighboring states. how can the Indian security forces
We
claim
will come to more of
peace
that.
and security in India?
We will come to more of that. I'll just like to get in Professor Prasenjit Biswas here. Dr. Biswas, well, the same question to you. Isn't it still a step towards the right direction? Yes, long due, but things are moving. And can we not say that this, after all, is the right way to go?
Actually, if you understand how a law goes, then a law doesn't go in piecemeal, in bits and parts, and law doesn't go also in terms of territories. So therefore, the basic concept of a disturbed area and counter-insurgency operations for which AFSPA was mooted since 1958, that picture still remains underneath when in certain areas AFSPA has been removed. So we are facing a double picture. On the one hand, in certain areas there is a relaxation. On the other hand, in certain areas, AFSPA still remains. Now this is a very delicate situation that is created by removing some part of AFSPA
But we also have a
while
security
retaining some
situation to
part
deal
of
with.
AFSPA
We
in
also
certain
have a
other
security
areas.
situation to deal with at the same time. We have to acknowledge that as well, Dr. Biswas.
That is a debate, because whether
In
to
fact, I'll come back to Dr.
ensure
Biswas in a
national
while.
security or internal security,
I'll come back
you
to Dr.
need a
Biswas in
law
a while.
like
We'll try to
AFSPA
fix
is
that
the major
line.
question.
We'll
Yeah.
try to fix that line.
Sure.
I'll come back to Dr. Biswas in a while. If I can go back to Endang. Well, yes, you did mention that AFSPA, Mr. Endang, that AFSPA needs to be repealed from the entire state of Nagaland. But of course, the government in the state, the leaders, the political leaders in Nagaland, including Chief Minister Nephew Rio, has also acknowledged unless and until there's a solution to the Naga issue, probably the AFSPA will remain. But whenever there's a solution, there is no insurgency as such, the AFSPA will eventually go. That is something that has been acknowledged by even the political leaders in the state, Mr. Endang.
Yes, definitely the center have somehow understood the effects of the act in Naga areas, particularly Nagaland. But you see, as long as this AFSPA is in place, and in the event of this act in place, if any solution or otherwise, if any agreement is to be signed, it will amount to duress. It will amount to forceful acceptance of the agreement. Therefore, we need to create a congenial atmosphere where every individual, every stakeholders need to have free of mind, free from all threats and disturbances. And in this, the atmosphere is being laid in Naga areas where anytime solution can take place if the government of India has a political will. So this act does not justify in bringing about solution to the Naga problem.
But again, Mr. Endang, today UDA Chairman T.R. Ziliang made a very significant statement. He said, well, to avoid re-imposition of AFSPA in areas which have now been removed or partially removed, it is also important that the people, the government, the civil society, everyone plays a very important role to ensure that there are no untoward incidents, there are no gun-toting elements going around the streets, and the ceasefire rules have to be followed in toto to ensure that there is no re-imposition. There is responsibility on the part of the CSOs, of the people in the government as well, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Because see, we have enough state machineries to deal with any situation, law and order situation, be it. Allow the state government to exercise whatever is in their reach. If the state government fails, of course, absolutely the central government has the power, but allow the local state governments to perform their responsibilities. Why should the central government impose their decision on the state and the people?
But again, do you think, Mr. Ndang, that as far as the state security machinery is concerned, as far as the state police is concerned, a lot still needs to be done to ensure that things can be entirely left to the police? And everyone has to be involved, everyone, all the groups, the people, the CSOs, the HOHOs, everyone has to be involved. It has to be a collective effort. And do you see this happening? Because there are again charges of rampant extortion, which many are calling as tax, and people should not face the heat. General people, common people shouldn't face the heat. So these are also issues that are being taken into account, which has been raised time and again, first by the previous governor and also by political leaders as well. These are certain complications that do remain, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, we want peace, and therefore, it is the Naga civil societies and the public that have called for peace and to stop bloodshed in the Naga areas. And therefore, that led to the signing of ceasefire agreement in 1997. And since then, we have been tirelessly working for peace and tranquility in Naga areas. And definitely, not only the state government, but the civil societies, the tribal HOHOs, the students, the mothers, all of us, irrespective of political parties, will have to work together to ensure that peace prevails in the region.
Coming to you, Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, coming back to what you were saying, of course, there are complications as far as reducing the ambit of AFSPA is concerned, isn't it? Probably the center also has no choice in a way than to be selective in repealing AFSPA from certain areas or reducing the ambit. Would you not agree, Dr. Biswas?
I mean, it looks like an ad hoc measure instead of a well thought out permanent measure. Because if in certain areas AFSPA remains, the threat of AFSPA or the influence of AFSPA will remain on the security forces, and it would look like that the security operations cannot be conducted without having AFSPA at hand. Now, this is where the question of human rights violation comes in. The question of suspicion of someone as a terrorist and being targeted by an officer of the army on the basis of suspicion has already created so many instances of misfiring and also mistargeting of people. The Mon incident we cannot forget. So therefore, the whole picture remains intact. Only hope is that there is a lessening of insurgency. There's an improvement of internal security, and at the same time, army comes out of this idea that they have to operate with AFSPA, because they can operate even without the AFSPA with the assistance of civil administration, because there are a lot of ample laws available which do not require this kind of a draconian teeth, like arresting without a warrant or search without prior notice, and also keeping people under detention, and also the possibility of shooting in suspicion. All this needs to be removed, absolutely needed in the context of Northeast. And that will build up a kind of confidence which will move towards the larger situation of peace.
But again, Dr. Biswas, do you think in a state like, if we take a state like Manipur, where there are over several close to a dozen or more of active rebel groups, especially if, as we move both in the valley and the hills, especially if we move towards the hills, do you think the civil administration is capable, the state police is capable, or this step is still needed? Probably the state government, the center has almost removed AFSPA from the entire valley. In hills, it continues to remain due to the complications.
This is connected to the ups and downs of the insurgency movement. As far as NSCN-IM is concerned, there is a ceasefire. Now, I don't see any point where this ceasefire cannot be extended to the state of Manipur or to Arunachal Pradesh. Now, NSCN-IM, which accepted voluntarily a ceasefire situation, in such a context, you don't need any application of AFSPA, especially in areas where NSCN-IM operates. Similarly, UNNF and other value-based insurgent groups are also in some kind of dialogue. So to build up confidence in both the sides, what is needed is a kind of active ground-level monitoring of the situation and not so much of security operations at this point. So therefore, the political context doesn't really require AFSPA, but the presence of AFSPA in certain parts of the state actually
props up a picture, a possible picture of some kind of disturbance which often leads to a conflict situation and aggravates the situation. So it's better to maintain an all-out peace situation by removing AFSPA so that the unwarranted action, which are the matters of controversy centering AFSPA, and there is a Supreme Court case in which fake encounter to the extent of some 1,200 cases are still being heard in Supreme Court in connection with AFSPA. That tells us in the context of Manipur what needs to be done. And Iram Sharmila has reasserted that AFSPA should be removed from entire Manipur, irrespective of hill and valley. So therefore, we should really take a civil society point of view.
Absolutely. Before we come to Mr. Ilwindang, there was a consultative meet held today in Chumukadima with the civil society organizations and tribal ho-hos of Nagaland over AFSPA. Let's listen in to what Mr. T.R. Ziliang had to say after the meet and what the Naga ho-ho and the NSF had to say after that very crucial consultative meet in Chumukadima.
Consultative meeting on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and this meeting is coming after the government of India had announced its decision to reduce some of the areas from the ambit of AFSPA. So what were the main points of discussion in today's consultative meeting, and how crucial is this meeting?
Yeah, we have had a good sitting, free and frank discussion, because all are of the view that this lifting of AFSPA in some district, partial lifting, and in some district fully lifted. We welcome the idea, but we exchange the idea how to take it forward. So if we implement, for example, like the ceasefire ground rule with the people, government, and police. If government and the people support the police, so we can implement these ceasefire ground rules in total. So the question of reimposing this AFSPA does not right. So we decided to cooperate with each other and take it forward, so that the remaining area also slowly it will go on the diminishing return. And at the end of the day, the whole state may be done away with this AFSPA. So that is the hope. If people and the government work together.
So what kind of mechanism is the state government going to put in place to ensure that this implementation is successful and that there is no room for the government of India to impose this AFSPA again in these areas?
That is why, as I said, the state police, we have about 20,000 forces. Those people now they have re-strengthened their forces in all the police stations. So with this, our own forces, if we can implement the ceasefire ground rule, there is no question of reimposing this AFSPA in our state.
We have already spoken of our views. And then I think today's meeting was very fruitful, because including the state government, even though partial lifted of the AFSPA is appreciated, still when there is no problem in the state, we all agree that the AFSPA should be completely removed from the peaceful state.
Well, there we just heard Mr. T.R. Ziliang and also the Naga Ho leader. Coming to you, Mr. Elwindang, T.R. Ziliang himself is saying, of course, the people of Nagaland definitely want AFSPA to be repealed from the entire state, but the onus also lies with the government and the people. And if the ceasefire ground rules can be implemented in letter and spirit, then there will be no need of AFSPA at all. Would you agree to that?
Yes, definitely. Any action that disturbs or destabilizes the society, I think we should be able to restrain this. And the need for AFSA does not arise. The civil societies, the students, the mothers, I think we have been working together. We will continue to work for peace and tranquility in the state. And also, the state government must sincerely deliver towards the peoples through justice.
Absolutely. Lastly, Mr. Elwindang, do you still think that the reduction of the ambit of AFSPA in certain areas and districts also shows that the alleged rigidity on the issue has been shed now? It's getting flexible, and we can expect better things very soon. And as leaders from Nagaland themselves are saying, if people, government, civil society, everyone cooperates, then the day will come when definitely AFSPA will no longer be in place, in force in any of the districts.
Yes, with this the recent development, we hope that the central government would be serious enough to address the issue at hand. Simply by reduction in certain pockets does not really address the problem that we have been demanding. Unfortunately, our people from one district, they are upset with the decision of the central government because their plea for justice have not been addressed. This lackadaisical attitude of the central government has rather added salt to the wound. But we hope that the central government will address the problem at the earliest and allow the people to have the free will to decide for its own.
Absolutely. Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, my last question to you. What do you think is the way forward? We also have to accept probably that a balance has to be maintained between the security concerns and the freedom given to people. Of course, everyone does believe that there should be no room for AFSPA in any of the states in the region. But of course, even in certain cases, even the state governments themselves do have security concerns, which we cannot deny. What do you think would be a balanced approach?
Security concerns have to be dealt without deploying military and armed forces as much as possible. That means the internal policing and the policing networks need to be strengthened. And the intent of law is to strengthen the policing network and not to bring in the army in a situation of civil conflict. Because these are low-intensity conflicts which should be handled by the government, state, and the policing mechanism. If that can be done, then that's a major breakdown. Now, the phase of such breakdowns are over at this moment, although there are security concerns. So therefore, ceasefire needs to be extended by the major insurgent outfits, and also there should be a larger, broader dialogue in the interest of peace by involving civil society and other such actors. If we can evolve that kind of a situation of dialogue and participation of all kinds of stakeholders, especially those who are demanding ethnic homelands, can be brought together, and a framework of peace agreement can be created that will mitigate the security concerns to a large extent. So I think one has to get into the actual causes instead of just dealing it from the top-down position, which will look like a security crisis, is actually a crisis of confidence, of peace building, and therefore a greater emphasis has to be laid on confidence building and peace building, which will keep improving the security situation in various parts of Northeast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas, for your perspective on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Elwin Dang of the Nagaho. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, we'll slip into a short break here. On the other side, we'll discuss the situation in Sikkim. Don't go anywhere.